Yeah. Um, so again, we started Tuesday night, and a lot of you were there. And I just want to say again, this is an anthology, early Buddhist text anthology put together by Bhikkhu Bodhi. And then also the fact that, again, repeating myself, that Hosan Alan Senake, who's the abbot of Berkeley Zen Center, wrote the epilogue, a prologue and epilogue, and he, I think, was very instrumental in getting this book published. And so he's on our well-being list because he is currently in the hospital in ICU after complications of a heart attack, and is not doing well. But as of today, that's his condition. So we're sending out prayers and well-being to him. This I got as far as barely the general introduction, and I find these early Buddhist texts kind of dry and repetition. I have to admit, that nothing was written down, and the Buddha taught for 80 years, and so he, everybody had to memorize it, and so there was a lot of repetition, and again, the main thing, as Nhat Hanh said, that we have to take as an article of faith is that the Buddha was not mistaken, and he was telling the truth when he expounded the Four Noble Truths and said that life is suffering. There's a cause of suffering, there's an end to suffering, and a path that leads to the end of suffering. And all of us are on this path that leads to the end of suffering. And so this book was then, how do we live together with each other in harmony, in community? How can we actualize this in our interactions? Because the people that we love the most are the ones we tend to be the worst to. So we want to try to do our best. And I guess the other piece as I read this is it reminds me, it's like the logical explanation of the teaching, like trying to get our logical intellectual mind to comprehend and accept these things. And so that, in the Tibetan tradition, they had debate, and the monks would debate and have these philosophic and discussions. And it kind of reminds me of that. And I'm just going to read this very first in the right understanding, which is where it starts, this right understanding. And we're to understand that there is a basic moral code in the universe, and that there is that by following a virtuous path, that we further our walk on the path toward the end of suffering. I was talking to Joe the other day, and she said that she had experiences in sesshin and meditation of absolute love, of everything being imbued with loving kindness, and that has given her increased amount of faith, or ability to say, yes, it's true that there is this order and fullness in our practice. But anyway, so the Buddha, this is about explaining the precepts and why we should follow the precepts. So the Blessed One said this: "What, householders, is the Dhamma exposition applicable to oneself? Here, householders, a noble disciple reflects thus: I am one who wishes to live, who does not wish to die. I desire happiness and am adverse to suffering. Since I am one who wishes to live and am adverse to suffering, if someone were to take my life, that would not be pleasing and agreeable to me. Now, if I were to take the life of another, one who wishes to live and who does not wish to die, who desires happiness and is averse to suffering, that would not be pleasing and agreeable to the other. What is displeasing and disagreeable to me is displeasing and disagreeable to the other too. How can I inflict upon another what is displeasing and disagreeable to me? Having reflected thus, he himself abstains from the destruction of life, extorts others to abstain from the destruction of life, and speaks in praise of abstinence from the destruction of life. Thus, this bodily conduct of his is purified in three respects. So that's just a shortened version of the one little part of of the precepts. And but for memorization, it really works out well. And we're not, as a society and as a globe right now, we're not doing very well on this one at all. So I just it's like the long version of do unto others as you would have one do unto you. And it's just so important, so important. With all the kind of division and increase in the amount of kind of secularism and hatred of the other, and now are the Jews bad, are they good, are the Palestinians bad, are they good, are the Muslims bad, are they good, and all this. And so I wanted to read this, which Susan White, I think she's here, you're here, posted on Facebook. So probably a lot of you've seen it already because I think it's been around, but it's great. Dalai Lama quote, can't go wrong. We can reject everything else, religion, ideology, all received wisdom, but we cannot escape the necessity of love and compassion. This then is my true religion, my simple faith. In this sense, there is no need for a temple or church or mosque or synagogue, no need for complicated philosophy, doctrine, or dogma. Our own heart, our own mind is the temple. The doctrine is compassion, love for others, and respect for their rights and dignity, no matter who they are or who or what they are. Ultimately, these are all we need. So true, so true. And on Tuesday night, we were talking about, how to enact that in the world, how to enact our loving kindness. And Constance mentioned being on the street and someone asking for directions and giving them directions, and how that was an example of our ability to practice loving kindness. And just like, the small epiphanies of life, where else can we really practice it except for face to face with another person? Where else? That's all we can do, really. Mother Teresa said, we can do no great things, only small things with great love. So then moving on in this book, we get to personal training and how we train our mind, or it's like, how do we change out of our self-centered view into a view of connection with others, or that we are all others in the same boat, that there are no others. And so well, the Eightfold Noble Path is part of it, but then also, I mean, not part of it, but the whole deal. But the Four Divine Abodes is brought up and mentioned at length. Loving kindness, compassion, joy in the joy of others, and equanimity. And here, this is I kind of crack up a little bit, but reading it, but I do love it. So these are the benefits of loving kindness. So everybody take notes here. Monks, when the liberation of the mind by loving kindness has been pursued, developed, and cultivated, made a vehicle and basis, carried out, consolidated, and properly undertaken, 11 benefits are to be expected. And what are the 11? One sleeps well, one awakens happily, one does not have bad dreams, one is pleasing to human beings, one is pleasing to spirits, deities protect one, fire, poison, and weapons do not injure one, one's mind quickly becomes concentrated, one's facial expression is serene, one dies unconfused, and if one does not penetrate further, one fares on to the Brahma world. When, monks, the liberation of the mind by loving kindness has been repeatedly pursued, developed, and cultivated, made a vehicle and a basis, carried out, consolidated, and properly undertaken, these 11 benefits are to be expected. So I do love it. Yeah. So I'm gonna sort of go off a little bit on a tangent about myself. This last year, I felt like I wanted to move kind of out into the world more with social involvement and social engagement. And so I contacted through, I've been interested in a few years, thought about the idea of working in prisons, and a little bit terrified by that thought, but because the whole idea of being inside somewhere and being locked up and having the doors shut and all that is really pretty scary to me. But I've connected with the Denver Zen Center, who have friends there, and they've had a prison ministry for a long time. And I've gotten involved with that and got my fingerprinting and went through all what you have to do to be allowed to go into the prison. And so I've done it for a few times now, and it's not scary. Once I got there, it was not scary. And we go in and do a half an hour meditation, and then there's some discussion, and read a excerpt, read a Buddhist article, or I mean, we're reading from Pema Chodron now. But when we asked them I asked the men, they have a time when we just kind of talk and tell how their day is going and that kind of thing. So one of the guys who comes quite regularly, he actually has he teaches yoga in the prison, and he has a pretty strong meditation practice. And he was saying that one of the problems is there weren't very many people at the meeting that day. And he said, one of the problems is that the men can only move from one area of the prison to another at a certain time. Like they'll open that particular gate at a certain time. And if you're in another section and your supervisor in that section didn't let you get to that gate, then when you get there, it's all done and you can't get in. So he said, we spent most of our life just waiting at the gate to try to get in here. So I said, oh, well, you could you could smile and breathe while you're waiting. That pissed him off. He was not really pleased with that. I mean, it was we can get, I felt like I was being kind of flippant. I mean, he wasn't overtly angry with me, but I could just tell the body language and kind of go, I could tell. So a little later, we'd read our article that we were reading, and then afterwards I tried to like bring it up again and said, I said, well, what I really meant to say was, what is it possible? Is it possible for you in this situation to walk down the hall to come to these gates? Can you practice? Can you be mindful? And is it possible to do? And he said, well, I'm there at the gate with 20 other people who are angry and miserable and frustrated and complaining, and it's really hard. And it just gave me a greater kind of understanding or awareness or sense of like what that life is like, and more of an appreciation for more of humility too, of what they go through. So that's what I've been into. And then my other aspect of reaching out for do more social justice, I got involved in, I went around the corner to this, there's a Christian church around the corner that's quite progressive, and they have, and I would see it. So I went over there thinking, well, maybe they would have more social programs, and indeed they do. They have, they're sending, they get involved in the Metro Caring and the food bank, and do a lot of outreach, which has been great. So I moved here, 5 years ago to follow my children, and don't really have a much of a social structure, and wanted to, get involved with that. And so I would also see, it turns out that there's the main congregation is a white church, and then they rent space to a black church, Absolute Word. And when I was first seeing people going in and out, I thought, oh wow, this is, I was all excited. This is an integrated congregation. But it turns out not, that the one congregation meets at 10 and the other one meets at 11. And I've just really been interested in the intersection of faith. Like what's the nugget, or what's the basis for all the religions? Because we all have the same thing as we're here in the social harmony. Everybody has morals and values that we live by and that are propagated, and what is the basis beyond all the various rules? I saw a meme recently where it was the Pope was there all in white, and then the Imam, the head of the Muslim community, was all there, all in black, and the little caption underneath was, "This guy is not allowed to drink wine, but he can have 5 wives. This other guy can drink wine, but has to be celibate." And it was kind of this like, whoa, where have we gotten with all of this? And then what's underneath? What's really underneath? And so that's part of my explorations, and opening, not to be also critical and judgmental of other people's ideas. So anyway, I've been going to the one service, and trying to open up to that, to what is prayer. I was talking about what is prayer, what is how do we pray? And then I went across the hallway, and then I go across the hallway to the Black church and attend that service. And it's fascinating. We could go on for days. But anyway, this week, one of the women who is called Evangelist Jackie has been running a prison ministry for quite a number of years. And this day put out a plea for, she said she just figured out that there's a hospice in the prisons, that the prison runs a hospice ward. So I was like, sign me up, because I was a hospice nurse and I can sit next to people's beds when they're dying. And so I'm excited to get involved in that. And I'll have to go through some training and again get vetted, but it's exciting to me how these avenues kind of open up as I'm coming into them. So I'd like to also read in this whole intersection of faiths. I found this recently from a friend, and it's the Lord's Prayer, a translation. I don't know who did the translation, but this is a translation straight from the Aramaic, which is the language that Jesus spoke. And so the Lord's prayers that we mostly know have been translated from Aramaic to Greek to Latin to English. And so this one, and I did some research on it, and there are lots of different versions, but this one goes like this. O cosmic birther of all radiance and vibration, soften the ground of our being and carve out a space within us where your presence can abide. Fill us with your creativity so that we may be empowered to bear the fruit of your mission. Let each of our actions bear fruit in accordance with our desire. Endow us with the wisdom to produce and share what each being needs to grow and flourish. Untie the tangled threads of destiny that bind us as we release others from the entanglement of past mistakes. Do not let us be seduced by that which would divert us from our true purpose, but illuminate the opportunities of the present moment. For you are the ground and the fruitful vision, the birth, power, and fulfillment, as all is gathered and made whole once again. And so it is. Sounds like a Buddhist. I mean, it's like, it just blows me. It just blows me away. So I love this. I love this stuff when I can find the intersection, the connection of all of this, and I find it's an antidote to the division that we're experiencing in the world right now. Yeah. So let's see. I've talked a while. Shall we break into groups and talk and connect? And I thought we could talk about yeah. Oh, share the prayer. Yeah, I will. I'll give it for the newsletter. Thanks, Barbara. I will. Well, maybe we could talk about what is prayer? I was like, what is prayer? How do we find our like juice, devotion, and how do we when we feel so helpless in front of these wars and the situation in the world and all the things that are going on in our lives, where do we connect to that? how do we connect to that? I guess that's my question, or anything else, but that's one that's been on my mind. Yeah. So Gretchen, can you do